hour, 9 to noon. PA has found his way into his vehicle, and he's embarking on a journey to Indianapolis, Indiana for the 2024 Scouting Combine. So, final hour in studio now, Lavelle Neal III, at Lavelle Neal via X/Twitter, columnist, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. Lavelle, how you doing, man? It's been a while since I've seen you.
It's been a while sitting in this chair because Chad does not trust me to host a show anymore. So
why is that?
I don't know. I think he gets mad when you say no to him. I think that's the one word he hates hearing the most is no. Because he's called me before to fill in, but it's either my writing day or I'm at media access somewhere, you know. And he's like, I'm busy, man. He's like, I'm gonna stop asking you to do this.
Well, he's got us all programmed. I will periodically say no to Abbott, but no eye contact while doing it. I have a hard time. I can do it. I'll get back to you, and then I'll text him. I'll send an email or something and bail out. It's a very tough ship.
Does Paul Allen have his own headphones?
No.
Okay, because
those are community headphones.
These were unplugged when I got in here. I'm trying while it's not working. I don't hear anything. And I reach down under here, plug is out. What's up with that?
I'm not sure. We don't respect the equipment here, Lavelle. Okay, it's old. It's been around for a long time. Let me jump into this because you wrote an article, and it was the headline was "Aim Your Angst Elsewhere, Twins fans." Payroll pouting is played out. So I want to get into that, but how much this week before you depart for Florida are you paying attention to the NFL Combine? Like your Bears, it's Caleb Williams, right? And then now you're just kind of keeping up on all the steamrolling that takes place for Vikings fans?
I mean, it'll be on in the background while I'm doing other stuff, but I'll kind of monitor it from a distance this week. It's pretty cool. I mean, I'm curious to see if someone like Michael Penix can play his way up the draft boards a little bit. Or Bo Nix, or someone like that, because quarterback draft's supposed to be pretty deep this year. So I'll be checking that out. Checking out the tackles. Checking out. Always looking to see if there's any running backs going to be in a hit at the fifth or sixth round. One of those guys. So yeah, they'll be on in the background while I'm doing other stuff.
And who the Illini have come, Jerzon Newton. That's going to be important to you. Who the Bears might pick at 9.
I think Keith Randolph's coming out too, so that was like the interior line for Illinois this year.
How about that? That's sweet.
Law firm, Newton and Randolph. That was a nickname, law firm.
It's a great nickname. Jumping back to the Minnesota Twins then, because you're going to be heading down. When are you going to Fort Myers to cover the team?
A week from today.
Okay. Did you write that headline in advance of going down to Fort Myers, just so you knew that everything was going to be okay when you arrived, that you had said all the right things, that you typed out that you had the right opinions, just in case you had to see eye to eye with somebody from the front office down there when you go down to Florida to cover the team?
No, I was just once again, I feel a responsibility to uplift the knowledge base of the listenership and the readership. So it was just a dose of reality. Just trying to help the readers along a little bit so they can be more prepared as they see how the season unfolds. They have a good team to cheer for. And I just think we get too wound up over numbers in this town. It's been a complaint going back to the late 90s when the Twins deserved to get ripped for tearing down the program and having 18 rookies in 1999 and 18 rookies in 2000, 1999. Yeah. And being super cheap then. I mean, it's hard for me to see that, the cheap Polatz thing has been screamed about because of that and because what Carl did to try to get a stadium built here, offering money that ended up being
the contraction bit.
Then the contraction. Yeah, I mean, it hasn't done the family any favors. But I can't sit here and look at this team. I see a $30 million shortstop in Correa. I see Buxton, who's locked up. I see Pablo Lopez, who's locked up. I don't see a team that's just pinching pennies.
Let me frame it up like this. Did he have to say anything? Because part of this, I think, is it's much less about providing new information as it was in some ways ripping up old scabs. Does that make sense? Like in the end, where in some ways you could almost say, well, I appreciate the honesty. We didn't need it. I think in some ways, to kind of openly just throw it right out there, we're not going to try and replace what we believe the talent was lost, at least not via free agency. Did he need to talk at all?
I guess he didn't, if you put it that way. But he was asked a question. And apparently, I just read this, Nordo, this morning. Apparently, what Joe said could be a violation of the CBA agreement. Apparently, there's a long list of things that owners are not allowed to say in the media. And one of them is like, we're out on player X. We're not going to pay this guy this amount of money because we don't want to give up the draft pick. And apparently one of them is we're not going to spend X amount of dollars on a player. So when he said we're not going to spend $30 million on a player, apparently that could be a violation of CBA.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I'm waiting to see how this transpires. But I looked at the list.
Well, now that's going to eat into the new TV deal if he gets fined.
The following is a list of non-exhaustive. This is a non-exhaustive list of prohibited comments. Player X won't receive anything longer than a 1-year deal. Player X is seeking more than player Y received. We are out on player X. Player X is worth at least X amount of dollars. Player X has contract offers from multiple clubs. We are unwilling to forfeit a draft selection to sign player X. We have concerns about player X's physical condition. Player X is not worth more than X million, nor should he receive a contract greater than Z years. Those are prohibited. Owners can't say those statements. First, I don't know how Major League Baseball agreed to that. We want more information, especially during the hot stove league, than less. Let owners talk.
The one thing, and I've gotten this because ever since he spoke, and we brought it up a few times on this show, talked about it on Saturday, doing the Saturdays with Sauce, and you're right. There is the attachment to the old, to the history of this ownership group with the team, and there's been a sensitivity as part of that, which I think in many instances is quite valid. Don't you feel like the open statement of not following that momentum, where as fans in some ways we're told that we got to get the business right first, versus the idea of if we are investing now, the business writes itself years down the road, tickets sold, and higher profile, higher platform for this team in this town, and balancing that.
Yeah, when I heard him say right size our business model, however he phrased it, also around that time, I don't know where I heard it. Someone threw it out there that there's like still some financial scar tissue from the COVID years. I had not heard that. I have not been told that at all, but it's possible because I remember I talked to Jim Pohlad, during the shutdown, and he was like, "We're taking all the financial wreckage on this. What are the players taking?" I mean, that's why they only played 60 games that year, because the players refused to, adjust their salaries. So
I think we all have some scar tissue from the COVID year.
Well, there's more scar tissue financially, more emotionally and mentally and harmony wise. Like it was a year I think we all want to forget. But and here's the other thing too is that it's disappointing that they didn't build momentum on from last year. But as I pointed out in the column, the Twins I think already knew during the season that they're going to have to do some trimming.
Yeah.
Because when they decided to bring Correa back, that pretty much had to tapped him out. So, but you can get mad at the Twins, but get mad at baseball. I wrote about this earlier during the offseason. They're finally now having more constructive conversations about full-blown TV revenue sharing, where it's just like a percentage. I think it's like 30% or something.
Yeah.
But they're now considering putting all the money in one pot and splitting it equally, which the NFL does. I'm not sure if the NBA does it, but the NBA prints money, man. So, but that would definitely help. That would help put a little bit of a drain on the teams that are getting $300 million TV contracts, while helping the teams like the Twins that got $54 million last year.
Yeah.
Because we only hear about the small market, mid market, low market, small market crap when it comes to baseball. You never hear these phrases used for other sports because the financial model needs to be adjusted. And I think, especially with the Bally Sports North kerfuffle during the offseason, I think that it's forcing some owners to kind of look at a different way to go about doing things. So we'll see what comes up out of this.
Last thing on his comments, and then we'll move on. You can't use the Tampa Bay Rays as an example of consistently winning baseball, Lavelle. The Tampa Bay Rays developing prospects, selling them off for the most part as they become stars, winning enough games to say, hey, look at us in the AL East, get to the playoffs, eventually fade. That does not create optimism in my heart, Lavelle.
Well, I think people teams are envious of how the Rays scout and develop, though. They have done a great job of that. And they used to fleece everybody they traded with. Getting Tyler Glass now for Chris Archer and Meadows, a good hitting outfielder, too. That was just a fleece job. The Twins deserve credit. They traded twice with Tampa Bay and came out the better both times because they sent a shortstop who never reached the majors for Jake Odorizzi, who reached the All-Star game, was named to the All-Star game when he was with the Twins. And they sent Nelson Cruz, half a season of Nelson Cruz with Joe Ryan. Those are 2+ side trades for the Twins. So, but to me, and my argument too is and I've told Twins people this: you gotta be above average when it comes to drafting and scouting and development. You have to, because if you're not going to spend on top free agents, you should take a fraction of that and make sure you have the best scouting and player development department in baseball. And that's how you're going to be able to generate consistency and momentum, because you're going to have a stream of players coming up, and some of them will be tradable commodities. And the Twins are in that mode right now because, Brooks Lee's knocking on the door. Austin Martin may be a backup infielder this year. And they put together a rotation last year because they were able to trade Christian Encarnacion Strand and Spencer Steele and Chase Petty, and not necessarily have it come back to bite them. So teams have to operate differently, and having a strong farm system, to me, I think it's vital. And I think that's one area where the Twins have done a pretty decent job in recent years.
I've received several text messages from a Jeff in Duluth, because here's the other side of it, Lavelle, is selling the hope. Except for maybe another starting pitcher, what pressing needs does the roster have? Jeff would argue they are talented, deep, and set at each position, and they'll win the Central by 8+ games. Okay, well, they won it by 9 last year, and they won 87 games. The division's awful. They should be massively favored to win it again, but that's the other side of it. So, top 15 market in the country, they're not spending top $15 on players. They're wheeling and dealing and navigating their way through an awful TV reality, all of those things. But in the end, you get a full season out of Royce, and Buxton plays a bunch of games in center field, and you're trying to sell that, right?
Absolutely. This offense could be really pretty damn good this year with Lewis there for a full season and confident, and with some positive reinforcement from last year. Buxton feels fantastic. If I'm Rocco, I'll let him play for like a week or two, and then I would just wrap him and sell in bubble wrap and just open him up on opening day, man. I wouldn't want to risk him even having a hangnail between now and opening day. But apparently the guy feels good. I was told he even hurt him to stand in the outfield last year when he was trying to get on the field and be relevant. So taking care of that.
It hurt him to stand in the outfield.
Yeah, that's just how the whatever was in the knee that they removed was causing that much discomfort. So, and Correa felt bad because he didn't supply the offense he should have until the postseason. But he played with Planner, and he wanted to use it as an excuse. But the Planner changed his mechanics, which I can totally see because I've had plantar fasciitis too, and it took me 6 weeks to get over it. So it's an overuse injury. And in my case, I just came back from a 10K training run, and the next day I could put my foot on the floor without being in pain. So I can understand the weight transfer and how it affected Correa's ability to hit. He's healthy too.
What'd you do for that 6 weeks?
I had to stay off the foot. Had to elevate it, walk as little as possible. Thank God I was a sports writer, so you're not required to be in the office all the time. I could kind of work from home, And
it is a job that's best done while seated.
Yeah, exactly. So
radio, not completely different.
In some cases, surgery has been required. I didn't need that. You can also be fitted for orthotics. That will help stabilize at the bottom of the foot, so it's not as painful. But the easy way was just to keep it elevated as much as possible. So, and that's what I did. And Correa didn't have that opportunity.
He had to go play.
But I like the offense. I really like the bullpen. The left-hander they got from was it the Mariners? The trade with Seattle, they got the Justin Topa kid, Jay Jackson. That's in addition to Griffin Jacks and maybe Alcala, and of course the man in the ninth inning, Duran. It's going to be a really good bullpen, and which could be vital if the rotation needs a little more help finishing up games because Sonny Gray is no longer around. But yeah, I get it. I wanted the Twins to add to this momentum, because they came out at the spring at the annual media luncheon, and they said, well, we're going to have like 98% renewal rate on our season tickets, and we're confident we're going to draw 2 million fans. Why is that? Because they had a good year, And if you start stacking good years, then now you're stacking more fans in the stands, and you're stacking up a little more revenue. So they didn't do anything to massage that one. So they got to get out to a fast start and crush, and get people fired up to come out to the ballpark.
How much does Correa, the leader, the player, how much does he dictate in this in terms of the amount of money you're allocating to him, combined with a perceived window that's open in terms of some of these decisions being made? And I've heard it thrown about, like in some ways you can't care what Carlos thinks, but you're high paid, A+ franchise player. I mean, they're not tapped out financially because of Carlos Correa. I mean, it's a massive contract, but to use that as a limiting or handcuff factor would draw my ire as a Twins fan. So, where does that play into it in terms of perceiving that this window is open and essentially pushing pause on it or trying to?
You were saying that the Twins are choosing not to spend money.
I believe it would be a choice.
Yes.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. A lot of teams choose not to spend money. The reason that these owners own these teams is because they were successful businessmen, because they made good business decisions. And there's very few that forget about making good business decitions.
I know they're elite. They're elite business people. Yeah. I know that.
But a lot of them continue to be elite business people without breaking the bank to go after players. San Diego did it. And, they had a loaded roster.
Man, they took a run, didn't they?
They did, and it didn't work out. And unfortunately, the owner is no longer among us, and now they're talking about liquidating. They said, they traded Juan Soto. What are you going to do with Manny Machado? But you got the Steve Cohens of the world, but it's New York money. So he's a hedge fund guy, so he likes throwing money at stuff. And the loophole that the Dodgers used to sign Ohtani was a master stroke. Oh, a couple of things before I forget. One, I got three things too.
3 thoughts from 3. This is like you're filling in.
Yeah. One, Jerry Reinsdorf wants a new stadium in Chicago. This stadium's only 30 years old. He wants a new one. And he actually said, I need a new stadium so I could compete because now players are signing for $700 million. I read that. I said, you're going to be kidding me. He's buying up parking lots all around the United Center. So I wonder if he's thinking about plopping one down there.
Oh, wow.
But my thing is there's plenty of space where the current stadium is to develop, because that's the thing now. Everybody wants to zigify their stadium deal, where you have a place where you can have different things like restaurants and shops and hotels.
Yeah, like retail space.
What the Wolves are doing over at the practice facility.
But like your guy, Bill McGuire, trying to create retail opportunities around the soccer stadium.
I hope he needs to create opportunities to score goals with his squad. And I hope the new coach works out.
They're 1-0, Lavelle.
They looked good against Austin. They had 11 corner kicks in the first half. That was dominant stuff. 2, your boy Miguel Sano.
Back in the league.
He's lost 58 pounds, apparently.
He looks great.
Yeah. He's got a different outlook in life, turning over a new leaf. And he's
older, wiser.
Yeah, he's going to try to latch on with the Angels and be in the middle of that lineup. So it could be good for him.
So he scored a run and he struck out twice.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to have some rough patches in your career.
Some humility.
Yeah. So before you take the next step forward. So good luck to him. 3, June 11th, mark your calendar. June 11th, the franchise, History of the Minnesota Twins, written by yours truly, will be hitting the stores. You can go on Amazon.com right now and reserve a copy of the franchise, Minnesota Twins, a curated history of the Minnesota Twins.
Let me pause briefly, and then I got a couple of questions for you on what will be on coffee tables and the back of toilets everywhere starting June 11th. That's Lavelle and Neal III. I'm Nordo. Final hour, 9 to noon. PA is on his way to the Combine. He's at the airport going through security at this very moment, hoping that he's chosen for the extra search. We'll return 9 to noon on the Fan.
KFAN, the Fan.
Nordo in for PA. You'll hear him down in Indianapolis starting mañana. A couple of shows tomorrow and Wednesday from the Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. Really cool guests. You're going to get to hear not only extended chats with head coach Kevin O'Connell, but general manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. You're going to get, there's some Adam Schefter in the mix. Cleveland Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski. The list is long in terms of some really cool guests that PA has lined up in Indy. Looking forward to that. Lavelle stays in studio at Lavelle Neal via Twitter, where you can find out information. What's the name of this book again?
The franchise, a curated history of the Minnesota Twins.
And it's true that that one of the Polads wrote the foreword for the book. Is that accurate?
No, Paul Molitor wrote the foreword.
It was Molly.
Yes.
Oh, sweet. What's your favorite part about this book? Because these things pop up, and I don't know. You know, you've built an immense amount of equity in this town, of course, covering not only the team, but now your columnist work for the Strib for so long. You know, I don't know how these opportunities either exist. Does a publisher contact you or vice versa and all that? But what's your favorite part of being able to look back not only on a quarter century of your work, but really going beyond that backwards through the annals of time with this baseball team? Well, you know, put that thing together on paper.
Yeah, I pretty much spent last summer at the Minnesota Historical Society, which I would recommend to everyone to take time out and visit once in a while. I found the first time I went there, I asked for anything you had that could tell me about the history of the Twins. And they wheeled this card out that had like these legal boxes with file folders in it. And it was Wheelock Whitney's personal collection. You know, Wheelock was part of the group to help bring baseball to the Twin Cities, you know. And I'm going through it, and I'm reading letters between him and Branch Rickey. And I'm sitting there going, this is awesome.
Wow.
You know.
That's a cool project.
So as far as favorite stuff, so it was nutsy and boltsy at the beginning, writing about, because they started talking about having a team here in 1952. So they had to go through the whole stadium grind, you know,
yeah,
to get to 61. And they were about the 60s. I did a chapter on the key managers. I did do a chapter on Billy Martin, even though he managed 1 year. It was a hell of a year. I did a chapter on TK, chapter on Gardenhire, you know. So
stupid question. Was Billy Martin, was that in 65 when they went to the World Series?
He was not with the Twins at 65 when they went to the World Series.
When was Billy Martin here?
69, I want to say.
Okay.
68, 69, I believe. The years start.
Well, maybe I should just read the book. If I read the book, I'll know all of that information.
So as we got into like the 80s and the 90s, and I used my access to players I covered and players who are around in town, you know, the Cat Herbeck chapter is one of my favorites because he's such a character.
Yeah.
Tim Lautner killed him. Oh, I interviewed Lautner. He told me a story. The Twins are in Chicago before a game against the White Sox. It's a half an hour before game time. And Herbeck finds a bowl of Oreo cookies. So he is sitting on the floor in front of his stall, eating Oreos. Tom Kelly comes out of his office. He's headed for the dugout. Once again, it's a half an hour before the first pitch. Kelly sees Herbeck on the floor going, "What the hell are you doing, Herbie?" Herbeck replies, "I'm hungry. And if you want 2 hits from me, you'll just keep right on walking."
That's phenomenal. Did you include the part where like Chuck Knobloch forgot how to throw to first base?
No, I didn't. Write
the mid-late 90s feel like dark times in the franchise, Lavelle. Like that's a tough chapter. If you have your favorite chapter, that might be the toughest one to write.
I could have just did a chapter on the Yankees, I guess. Just encounters with the Yankees through the years, and I could have gotten a hot dog game in there. And then I think there was another game where Koski tried to
slide and tackle Jeter into left field. And then, of course, all the playoff losses. That could have been a whole chapter. But no, I'm not that sick of a human being. So, but it was cool. It was a great project. A lot of research. Talked to a lot of people. Great conversations. Herbeck was great. Andy McPhail was awesome. Jim Cott was brilliant. Oliva was great to talk to.
And is this illustrated? Like it'll have photos and such like that? You're talking about old stadiums and, 87, 91, et cetera?
I thought about that, but this series that Triumph Books is doing, they don't have any photos.
Okay.
So I think there's a profit reason because a lot of times to get photos, it's going to cost money.
Them, yeah.
If you call a newspaper, we want to can we get photos to put in our book? They're going to want to charge you a lot. So I think they avoided that issue there. So
no, I think that's sweet. Do you think that Major League Baseball is going to fix this TV thing?
Eventually, I don't think they have a choice. They
because
have to.
stemming, beyond and all the, pull ad pocket protector, this and all of that. Forget about that and just look at it at large. Like it's been a topic for how long, Lavelle? The idea that they, marketing their stars and getting these guys on national TV. We've used Mike Trout as an example. Speaking of the Angels, Shohei Ohtani certainly is going to have more exposure maybe now that he's with the Dodgers. But all the same, the fact that the average fan, unless they have, the MLB package, that they're not seeing these guys enough. And so I think MLB could notice that. They'd probably be okay with it, or at least they would concede that the big markets of LA and New York have kind of found ways to monetize those individuals themselves. But the league at large, from a national television perspective, like you said, they're the one team that we're constantly harping on and talking about this, and they've been slow to go and figuring it out.
I think the league would like to have a streaming option in place by as early as next year. I think they're in a mode now where to get as many eyes on the product as possible is the goal, even if it's not lucrative. Because I talked to someone who's more aware of the stuff than I am, and I was told by him that Netflix is pretty much the only streaming service that's making money out there. Everybody's like taking a little bit of a bath. Some people have a bigger rubber ducky to bathe with than others.
Yeah.
But it's the way to go because you got a lot of people unplugged. A lot of people who no longer, want Xfinity or want Dish Network, or
right.
DirecTV.
Yeah.
And you got to have the game presented for them. You got to be able to present the game to those people. How do you do it? Apps on phones, computers, things like that, iPads or whatever you want to call tablets.
I'm curious what those numbers are because you mentioned that. The Diamondbacks, I saw in the news, the Diamondbacks got their own system set up. So for like $100, you can stream the entire season or whatever that looks like. There's probably blackout dates for a few national games that I don't have the freaking schedule in front of me. Don't know anything about the Diamondbacks. But what are those subscription numbers? Because I would still venture to guess. I don't see that as being 500,000 subscribers. I mean, if 100,000, 200,000 people, maybe more, and maybe I'm just off on that, but I still think as open as people are to streaming, we're a state with what, 5.5 million people. Well, how many of those are Twins fans? Boil that down. How many are interested in spending
right.
You start to whittle those numbers down. I don't look at that as millions of subscribers or really even high hundreds of thousands.
Well, I keep contemplating pulling the plug myself. I'm paying like $250 a month for Xfinity. And
yeah, all of us are. Even people that cut the cord, Lavelle. I mean, you just add, by the time you get through Hulu and Netflix, you got Amazon Prime, you got all these spots, HBO Max, you're paying the same thing.
No, well, here's the thing, though. Why I would rather go a la carte and pay for what I want than to pay $250 for 900 channels, of which I probably look at 30 of them, maybe on a regular basis.
Yeah. One of those in particular in the 900s, but anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, the owner of the Phoenix Suns decided to put all his teams on network television. I mean, on local TV. He just said, screw the whole thing. Because, once again, the reason the sports package is so high is because you're getting everything else attached to it that costs money.
Yeah.
And this way you could just say, I want Diamondbacks games. I'll pay the $100. You have more control over what you have available to you or what you can but you have more control over what you want to view instead of looking at what is this Food Network? What is this Dog Network? What is this Tennis Channel? Stuff that you really don't want.
No, more consumer control is better. Last thing for you, you're excited to head down to Florida, I assume. What's your first stop? Beachside trivia nights. I've seen a lot of that from the Dan Hayeses of the world. There's probably a cigar spot. Where are you headed first in Fort Myers?
Well, I'm not part of that group. I don't want to say I've been exiled, but there's a generational gap between me and a little bit Hayes, but a lot like Do Young Park and Betsy Helfand. They're just another generation of people who think that going to trivia once a week is a great thing.
Those damn kids, basically.
It just doesn't. I don't know. I got into a debate with Doe in the press box a couple of spring trainings ago. And at the end, he finally got mad at me and just went, "Okay, boomer."
You got hit with one of those.
Yeah, I got hit with one of those. So we'll go out to dinner at least once as a group. We'll go to a place called the Monkey Duck off Captiva.
Okay.
But yeah, I got to check out some of the familiar haunts, and one of them is the world-famous cigar bar. And they have 3 locations in Fort Myers, and I've been to all 3. And there are people who are awaiting me. There are people who cover the Red Sox, who are Red Sox scouts, who are Red Sox minor league coaches who I know through the years that we would go to the cigar lounge and have spirited conversations about how to fix baseball. Dan Gladden has been in there. Luis Tiant has his own cigar line. He shows up once in a while. Tony Oliva's shown up in there. Mulder show up in there. So I've had great conversations about ball during spring training. And it's great. That's the best thing about the sport is covering the spring training because you pretty much immerse yourself in baseball. You don't have to worry about anything else for about 40 days if you're the beat writer.
Like money-related conversations.
Yeah.
That probably doesn't come up very often down there.
Yeah. I'm going to tell one story. I'm not going to mention the player, but one time I was enjoying a cigar and there were some Twins minor leaguers there, and I guess they were told that, Lavelle's been covering the team forever, blah, blah, blah. So one of them was like, "Hey, I am so-and-so, man. Yeah, and I just bought your next drink. I appreciate it, And then I'm looking at this guy going, I said, wait a minute. So I pull out my phone. I'm looking up. The guy's not even 21 yet. I'm like, what the heck?
So you obviously told the bartender, right?
I did not.
Oh, you did not?
I did not say a word.
You finished the drink and went about your way. That's
exactly.
Awesome.
So there's going to be a period here sometime today or tonight. It's going to be warmer here than it is in Fort Myers.
Yeah, it's weird.
And then it's going to get really cold here, but it's going to be in the 80s by the time I get down there next week. So I'm fired up about
Perfect timing for you.
And I give credit to Phil Miller and Bobby Nightingale, the beat writers. After years of trying, they finally were able to score a condo in a place we've always wanted to stay in, which is right down the street from the ballpark. So it was going to be very convenient, too. So
that's where all the boomers are hanging out.
I'm going to go over to Fort Myers Beach. Last year when I was in spring training, I went to Fort Myers Beach and wrote about the aftermath of the hurricane. So I'm going to go back again this year and see how much progress was made. Dan Allers, the mayor of Fort Myers Beach, is actually from Spring Lake Park. So there's a Minnesotan part of the, rebound efforts to the Fort Myers Beach. So in fact, I got to send him a message to let him know I'm coming down next week so we can talk.
Well, thanks for hanging out with me. Have fun down in Florida. Congrats on the book. And terrific work as always, fending the challenges and blocking yourself from all the negativity as you write about that baseball team and that ownership group.
Like I said, this is a dose of reality radio here when I'm on. So I hope that people feel smarter after they listen to me talk.
They always do. That's Lavelle Neal III, 9 to noon.
The Fan.
You heard that liner there, bringing us out of break. Final segment, 9 to noon. PA at the airport, about to head down to Indianapolis. And you'll hear 2 shows tomorrow and Wednesday, live from the NFL Scouting Combine in Indy. But you heard that liner there, and 2 teams in the mix, both their head coaches joining this morning. It's 6:45 pregame tomorrow night here on the Fan. And then shortly after 7 p.m., the Wild hosting the Carolina Hurricanes. Awesome weekend that they had on the road, getting victories both not only in Edmonton, but then doing the back-to-back into Seattle. And it felt like you get that, I don't want to call it a miracle per se, but the 7 goals in the third period of the matinee with Vancouver on a Monday. And you're on a high from that, only to watch what happens a night later in Winnipeg, and everybody's down again. And the wave of the average Wild fan from the exhilarating highs of we won, we can beat anybody, to the lows of what a disaster. We don't match up well with any of the league's best. A year ago, get rid of everybody. One and done in the playoffs isn't good enough. This time around, just make it in, begging for a playoff spot. The ups and downs, but to bounce back from that Winnipeg game and then do what you do against McDavid and company in Edmonton on Friday night was fantastic. Nothing short of it. And then getting that lopsided victory. Dakota Mermis, how often you hear that name, him showing up with a goal as part of that rout over the Kraken. That's a big deal. And the head coach was on during the 9 a.m. hour. You'll be able to podcast that. And he kind of gave a thank God he's okay update on Jules Eriksson-Ek. Busted into the boards, had to leave the game. He thinks he's going to be all right. Could have been worse, is not. But also, John Hines would not, he wouldn't commit to the idea of Eriksson-Ek playing in tomorrow night's game. So look out for that. And then with the Wolves, a couple of 7 p.m. starts tomorrow. We got St. Paul action. We got Minneapolis. Which one are you going to choose? Well, at Target Center, you'll get to hear it on the iHeartRadio app. They're hosting Wembanyama. They're hosting the Spurs. And kind of, in some ways, lackluster coming out of the break with as weird a game as that Milwaukee Bucks game was on Friday, and then kind of sluggish at times, chugging along. You eventually stretch it out and get the win over the Nets the next night. But, now the Spurs going nowhere, beat on them. Now, Wemby's been really good lately, so it'll be fun to kind of see what that unicorn of a player is at Target Center. So I'm jealous of anyone going to that game tomorrow night. But then the Grizzlies. So the next two, being able to handle those as part of this ongoing 7-game homestand out of the break, massive opportunities for the Howl as well. So you'll get to hear the Wild on the Fan. You'll get to hear the Wolves on the iHeartRadio app, but then podcast because head coach Chris Finch joined us this morning as well during the 10 a.m. hour. So all podcastable, free iHeartRadio app. Do that whole thing. But tomorrow, Combine time. PA, Indianapolis, the Scouting Combine. Pete Bursich, I believe, is driving down from Chicago to be a part of it. So Bursich is going to be there. That'll be a fun. I don't think Bursich has done the Combine bits with us in the past. So PA's down there, Bursich with him, cavalcade of guests and interviews, second floor by the Starbucks, steamrolling. All of that is happening the next 2 days, 9 to noon. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Lavelle for stopping in. Blake Barrett's Institute for Athletes. He was in studio during the 10 a.m. hour as well. Appreciate it as always for listening to The Fan. The Grum is next. Have a good afternoon.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the